right, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the part 2 of our post-secondary planning presentation. I'm Lori Cohen. I am one of the counselors in the high school office, and I'm also the coordinator of the department. So I'm joined tonight by my colleague, Dr. Ann Trandor. I'm going to be doing the presentation this evening, and Dr. Trandor will be answering questions. So there is a chat feature that you can type your questions in and she will answer them as best as she can. So thanks for joining us. I hope that this meeting is meaningful for you and you get some good information about this. It's kind of exciting because now it's starting to feel real. You guys are really starting to get into the thought process of colleges and starting to think about what you should be doing. So hopefully tonight will clarify for you some of your questions. Oh, sorry. So tonight's agenda is really just fourfold. We're going to be talking about the college search process. We're going to be talking about the application process and what you can be doing as a junior. We're going to be looking at some timelines, and then I'll do a little bit talk on financial aid, and then we will reconvene and answer any questions you might have. So the first thing is important to know is who your student's counselor is. It's really important that you and your students know who you should be in touch with, because between now and next year, you're going to be using us a lot. So here's the breakdown of the last names of students, and you can identify who your counselor is. By the way, this presentation will be both, the slideshow will be available online tomorrow, as will the actual video recording of it. So if you need to leave or if you want to refer back to it, it will be available on our website starting tomorrow. All right, so the college search process. Now is the time that you really should be starting to think about colleges. There are over 3,500 colleges in the United States alone. And so your goal as juniors is to narrow that list down to a manageable list so that you can know which schools you're going to be applying to. Most students apply to anywhere from 5, the average application number is 5 to 8 to 10 schools. Some kids only apply to 1 or 2, others apply to a lot more. But what you want to do is really try to narrow things down. So it's time now to start the conversations, start talking as a family about what you're looking for, what the students are looking for, and what you as the parents are able to do. So first thing you want to do is look at their admissions criteria. How challenging is the school? What are the average GPAs? What specific courses do they require? How many years of a foreign language are they looking for? How many years of science? Things like that. Another really important thing, especially to us as parents, is what the tuition is, including the room, board, and fees. Now, just as a caution on that one, colleges put their prices out there, and you're going to see those numbers and be very overwhelmed and think, oh my gosh, how am I ever going to pay? Some of these schools are 80,000 plus for these things. I like to say that it is similar to a Kohl's shopping experience where you never pay full price. You rarely pay full price. There are always discounts and money taken off. So while you need to be aware of tuition, room, and board, you also have to realize that your student, depending on their criteria, may get some good financial aid from the school. So don't rule anything out at this point. You are looking at size of schools. Schools can range from 40 or 50,000 down to 800 or 900. So you need to start having a conversation, and it's important to understand what those things look like. So larger schools clearly are going to give you more options in terms of majors, in terms of availability of courses, in terms of perhaps internships and experiences, some research. Some of the negatives of a larger school is that you might be in a lecture hall with 700 or 800 students. You may feel like more of a number, and nobody's noticing if your student is in class or not. So the student's going to have to make sure that they are self-driven and motivated enough to go to classes, even if the teacher doesn't take attendance. Smaller schools obviously have a little bit more of a disadvantage if your student changes his or her mind on majors or what career path is. They may not always have exactly what they're leaning towards. They may not have the depth and the breadth of internship opportunities and job opportunities and co-ops. However, your student will have a chance to build relationships with their professors. They'll really get to know them. Sometimes they will have the same professor multiple times. They will be in smaller class sizes, so it might be less of just doing 3 or 4 tests a semester versus those in a smaller school where you'll have projects and papers and presentations. So you kind of have to weigh it out and figure out what you're looking for. And that kind of goes into that average class size. You want to look at distance from home and the type of school it is. Does your student want to be in an urban environment? There are urban schools that are very much campus feeling. For instance, Temple University, while it's in Philadelphia, the campus itself has a really solid green grass Temple experience, college experience that you feel like you're on a campus, versus perhaps Drexel, that it's also in Philadelphia, but it is more of a just part of the city and different buildings rather than a whole center area. So would you prefer to be close to a city but not in the city? Are you looking for a rural area? How far from home are you interested in? Many students will say, I want to get as far away as I possibly can. But you have to take into account things like the cost of that. So airfare. When students want to come home for breaks, that tends to be when airlines jack up the prices of airfare. So your students may only come home once or twice a semester. So keep that in mind, if they're want to come home more often, or if you're concerned about if they're sick or if they need to get home for something. Are you looking for athletics? Are you an athlete? Do you want to play? That would be a big factor in this. Are there specific extracurriculars you're looking for? Are you looking for Greek life? Are you looking for an ice hockey team? Are you looking for horseback riding? You want to look and see if you have some of those availabilities, if those are interests to you. Certainly, you want to look at the availability of housing and their facilities. What do the dorms look like? How many years are you guaranteed to be on campus? If you're not guaranteed to be on campus, what are the availability of apartments? You can always find on campuses on colleges what their average financial aid award is. That will give you an idea of how much money the colleges tend to give out. Clearly, if your student has a major in mind that they're interested in, you want to make sure that you're looking at colleges for that. Now, keeping in mind that many students do change their minds and adjust what their interests and their career paths are. Many students go into college not knowing that. Again, if there are any special needs, special activities, is diversity important? Are you looking for an HBCU? Are you looking for a campus that looks like the Cheltenham student body? So these are all things to consider. Some other things that you don't tend to think about originally, but these are things to start thinking about as you narrow down your searches. Look at their statistics. What is their retention rate? That means how many students return for their sophomore year. What is their 4-year graduation rate? With the cost of college, many kids are doing 5 or 6 years. If that's not something that you are feasibly able to do, take a look and see what they support and what they offer to their students. Look at job placements in their career centers. This is, remember, the goal of college, to get them started into a positive career and future. So look and see how they do with job placement. Many students end up going to grad school. What are their acceptance rates to grad schools? What grad schools are students being accepted into? These are important questions. Co-ops and internships are very important these days for many employers. They're looking for students to have some type of work experience before they start their actual career. So what opportunities are available to students at each individual college? Do they have a lot of support? Do they have a lot of interest? Do they have career fairs that will work with this? Advisors, what kind of advising is it? Is your student going to be left alone to figure this out? Or they have a really strong support system? Public transportation is important, especially if you're going to be commuting or if that's how they're going to be coming home. So you want to make sure that it's accessible to you and for them to get back and forth. Many colleges are doing a lot of new building and new construction, whether they're renovating or they're actually building new buildings. So something else to take a look at. And so where do I do this? So Naviance is a great place to start for the career search. There is a career search option on Naviance. If you don't know what Naviance is, ask your students. Hopefully they do know. If not, please reach out to your student's counselor. But basically you can access, Naviance is an online database where we keep statistics on Cheltenham graduates. So you will be able to log on, and if you are interested in applying to Gwynedd Mercy University, you can see how many students in previous years have applied to Gwynedd, what were the stats and averages of those who were accepted versus those who were not accepted. You're going to access it from the Cheltenham website. You're going to go to the high school students and then click on Naviance. The logon information is typically your students' beginning part of their Cheltenham account. So it would be 24, first initial of the first name and then last name. There will be a button if your student has not been on in a while that says reset your password. So have them click and do that. If you have difficulty accessing that, please have them either go to their counselor or you can email or call us and we can very easily reset that for you. So as I was talking about looking for colleges, there is a button called Super Match. That's a great thing because all of those categories that I just went over, you will be able to plug in information and you will be able to search based on your answers to those criteria. So Super Match is a really good place to start. I also like, as a search engine, College Board's Big Future has a really good search engine for colleges as well. So College Board Big Future is another good one to look at. So once you start coming up with colleges, you want to click onto colleges I am thinking about. You want to put those colleges, and when you're looking at the colleges, it's real easy to add them to your list. So when you're doing this Super Match and you find a school that you like, there's a little heart. Click on the heart and it will automatically add it into your students section here, colleges I'm thinking about. Another thing that we do for our students in the fall is we arrange college visits where college representatives come to the high school and meet with students who are interested in their schools. Hopefully some of your students took advantage of this in the fall. If not, they definitely want to consider doing this in the fall of their senior year. The college representatives who come are actually 90% of the time the person who is looking and at their application and making decisions about them. So it's a really good way for your student to get some FaceTime with the person who will be looking at their application. Will be, especially if the college is a little further away and you haven't had a chance to visit, it's a nice way for your students to get information. We typically have close to 100 schools visiting in the falls. So make sure that when that happens, you start logging on students regularly and seeing what new colleges have added so you can sign up and visit with them. So this colleges I'm thinking about screen, what it looks like. You see that you'll list the college names. You can click on any college in Naviance and you can get lots of information about them. There's a button here. There's a place here that you can do Compare Me. If you look, this is one of our favorite students, Joe Cheltenham. He currently has a 3.1 GPA. You can see on the first line, and his combined SATs were 1050. What I like about this is that it very clearly, with X's and check marks, shows you how his stats compare to the schools he's looking at. If you notice on the right-hand side over here, it will show you at Albany University, we've only had one student from 2013 to 2019 who has applied and been accepted. One out of two one was accepted, two applied. So these stats aren't going to be real accurate. But if you look at Bloomsburg, we've had 270 students applied and 161 accepted. So it's going to be nicer. It's a better way to compare. So good way to look at these things and check out how you look compared to other students. So some things you should be doing and thinking about now are the college visits on campuses and interviews if offered. So our spring break is coming up. Summer is a great time to visit, spring break, but weekends are also really good. All you have to do is you'll Google the name of the college. So if you want to do University of Connecticut, you would do University of Connecticut, visit, and it'll take you to a page. They will often offer information sessions and campus tours. You want to make sure to do both of those. And then you'll register on a date that's available with you. It's all registered online. Many colleges in the spring offer open houses for juniors. These are really nice opportunities. They tend to be longer time periods than the campus visit and tour, where they'll offer you more information about perhaps different departments. They might go into some financial aid, the extracurriculars. Some schools have like a spend a day with us for juniors. So these are all really good opportunities, especially if colleges are within driving distance. We highly recommend college visits, because keep in mind, you can look at brochures, you can look at pictures online, they all are there, but those are all created by marketing people. So they are going to sell their college in the best possible light. So I will guarantee you that on most websites, you're going to see students sitting around on grass somewhere, talking to their friends with textbooks open. You're going to see kids walking to class, everybody smiling. It's beautiful sunshine out. That's great. And certainly that happens, but it's really important to go if you can and visit the schools. You will get a sense of the student body. You'll get a sense, especially if you go on a Saturday, if people stay on the weekends or do they tend to go home. You will get a sense of, are people collaborative? What are they doing? What are they acting like? I always recommend, if possible, to eat a meal, eat your lunch on campus at their student union or in one of the dining halls. That's a great way to observe the student body without a tour guide talking in your ear. You will get to see, are the kids sitting and chatting with each other? Are they all studying? It's a really good way to get the vibe of the school and the campus. So highly recommend college visits and doing those as often as possible. Interviews. Some colleges, particularly private, smaller schools, more competitive, will offer interviews. There are two types of interviews. One is an assessment interview where the person who is interviewing you will be writing up a brief note, and that will be used as part of your application process. Others are more informational videos. But if something is recommended or optional, we always say that students should do that. So whenever it is offered, schedule an interview. You should go dressed fairly nicely. You don't have to wear a suit and a tie or, a formal dress, but you should not be wearing ripped jeans, maybe a nice blouse and a pair of slacks, or guys can wear khakis and a button-down shirt or a pullover sweater or something. Be prepared. Go in with some questions and don't ask questions such as, how many students are on campus? Because that is information you can find online. So, but instead, say, hey, I'm kind of interested in biomedical ethics. Can you tell me about some research opportunities that I might have on this campus? Oftentimes, the interviewers are alumni of the school. So it's a nice question to say, what was your favorite thing about the school? Why did you like it here? You can come to us and we can practice asking you questions. You can practice with your parents, friends, but definitely go in with a little bit of practice and preparation. It goes without saying, but make sure you're not chewing gum, you don't have your cell phone out, that you are not using the word like every other word. And when it's over with your interview, make sure you ask the person for their business card or their email address and write them a quick thank you note. That goes a long way. One of the things to keep in mind when you are doing college visits is, again, tour guides are hired for the role. They're often volunteers, sometimes they're paid to sell the school. So it is a good idea to really spend the time looking around the campus and checking out. Make sure, parents, that you are not dominating the tour, but rather let your students drive it. Let them ask questions. Let them walk with the tour guide and you kind of stay towards the back. Now is the time for students to take over this process a little bit. So we do encourage that. All right, so the actual application process. The goal is by the time you come to school in September, you will know exactly which schools you will be applying to. You want to put all of the research time in your junior year and the summer before your junior year. And then senior year, you want to just focus solely on applications. So here's primarily what colleges are looking for in terms of their admissions criteria. The first thing is pretty much without fail with every school are your grades and your GPA in college prep classes and the rigor of your course selection. So what that means is colleges want to see you getting good grades in as hard classes as you can handle. It certainly looks good for students to take an honors or an AP classes along the way. So if you haven't done that yet and you didn't select them with your counselor, maybe think about it and send an email because those classes will show to colleges that you are prepared and ready for the college classrooms. We want you to keep in mind that your senior schedule is sent. So when you apply, which you will be applying in the fall, typically most kids apply till between September and December, you don't have grades yet, but we will send the list of classes you're taking. And so if you have convinced your counselor and your parents to take a late arrival and an early dismissal and lots of electives, and you don't have any that many academic classes, that could work against you in the college process. So make sure your senior schedule is rigorous and is still academically driven. Also recognize that the majority of schools will require mid-year grades. So what that means at the end of January, when the first semester is over, we will be sending grades. Many colleges, especially if a student is on the fence, will wait and see how the mid-year grades look for their senior year. So you really want to go into your senior year strong, do the first semester as high, get those grades as high as you possibly can. But across the board, every college is looking at grades and GPA and the type of courses that you are taking. The next thing that is being used, although not nearly like it was pre-COVID, is standardized tests. Those are your ACTs and your SATs. From what we have seen, the majority of schools are still going test optional for next year. There are some schools, however, that are not. For instance, Florida schools require scores. So double check to make sure which colleges need them. We highly recommend that all students take the SAT or the ACT, and that if you don't like them, you don't use them, but to give them a try and see. Colleges do want to see if you've taken them, so give it a try. Hopefully you'll do well and you can use that as part of your application. If not, though, as I said, many schools are not requiring them. So schools are starting to weigh more heavily on essays or personal statements. Hopefully, if you had English in the first semester, you got a good start on this process. If not, you're in English this semester, hopefully you'll be doing it before the end of the year. But the essay and your personal statement, and I'll get into that a little bit more in a few moments, will become important. Then we have teacher and counselor recommendations. Many colleges are asking for 1 or 2 teacher recommendations, and some are requiring counselor recommendations. And again, I will address this in a few minutes. And finally, colleges are wanting to see what you're doing when you're not in school. So what kind of extracurriculars are you doing? Do you have a job? Do you play a sport? Are you involved in clubs? And they're also not looking for you to be involved in 15 different things, but they want to see a commitment spread over a few years. Perhaps you've moved into a leadership role. So it's a good idea starting now is to start brainstorming all of the activities that you have done from 9th grade through now, and including what you plan to do in your senior year. Jot them down on a piece of paper and then keep it handy because you will need to answer those questions on your college applications. Sometimes it's hard to remember what you've done in 9th grade. So when you have no pressure, you've got some time, take the time and generate your list now. Okay, so what are applications? There are 2 different types. There are school-specific applications. That means you would go to Penn State's website, you would go to psu.edu, and you would click on apply now, and you can apply directly using their personal application from the college. There is also something called the Common Application. You may have heard of that. It's called, we call it Common App. There are close to 1,000 schools at this point that use the Common App. What Common App is you fill out all of the basic information about yourself one time. So all of your demographics and your parents' information and your activities and your extracurriculars are all entered one time. And then you will get to submit your application to multiple schools using this platform. So the Common App is a really good tool. It saves a lot of time if that's available. Some schools will offer you either their own website or the Common App, and it doesn't make any difference to them which one you use. So don't think one is better than the other. They are definitely not, just caring which version of application you've used. There are several different types of admissions that you have to be aware about. The first one is called regular decision. This is probably one of the most common. There is a set deadline. So if the deadline is January 1st, you must get your application in by January 1st at midnight. They will not begin reviewing applications and evaluating until after that January 1st deadline. And then typically they will release their decisions all at the same time. So be aware, if there's regular decision, you need to make sure you're meeting that deadline. Once the deadline has passed, you will not be considered for that university if you haven't applied. The next type of admission is called rolling admissions. Rolling admissions means that the colleges will be evaluating the applications as they come into their office. So if you apply to a school in September, you should hear back from them in 4 to 6 weeks. They're not going to wait until everybody's applications are in. So that's, if you have schools that are rolling admissions, and our state schools tend to be that way, public schools tend to be that way. But if there are rolling admission schools, our advice is that you submit those as early in the fall as you can. Because if you think about it, let's just say there are 1,000 spots they're looking to fill. In September, there are still 1,000 spots. So they're not getting as many applications early. They can get an answer to you more quickly. They're going to be able to fill their spots. If you wait until December or January, they're still going to look at your application, but now they're down to 200 spots, and now they can be a little more selective in particular. So if there's a rolling admission school, we always say we recommend that by middle to the end of October at the very latest. I do know, like University of Pittsburgh, for example, you can apply to them as early as August. And we have students who hear from Pittsburgh by the second week in September. So it's kind of cool to be like just starting your senior year and get your first college acceptance. Then there's what's called early action. Early action is kind of similar to regular decision in that colleges will set a deadline. These deadlines, however, tend to be earlier in the fall. So there might be October 15th, October 30th, November 1st. After that date, they will start reviewing those students who applied early action, and you typically hear from those schools by the middle to end of December. So always, if a school offers you early action, I strongly recommend that you use that option. It's really nice to get acceptance letters early and not have to wait until March or April. Some schools tie in their scholarship money to early action deadlines. I know University of Maryland has done that, whereby if you don't apply to them early action, you will not be considered for scholarships. So please make sure you're looking for that as well. But there is no downside to applying early action. So it's absolutely in your best interest to use that early action option. Then we have what's called early decision. And now there are early decisions 1 and early decision 2. These are a little more complicated. Their deadlines tend to be similar to early action. You apply by a certain date, typically some point in October, and they will answer you in December. However, the conditions under early decision state that if you are accepted, you will agree to attend, you'll put your deposit down, and you will withdraw your application to all other schools. It is a binding contract between you and the school. I, as the counselor, have to sign it, your parents have to sign it, and you have to sign it, agreeing that we've had the conversations and that you agree that if you are accepted early decision, you will not apply to other schools. You will not continue your application process to other schools. What is the benefit to early decision? First of all, it is a great idea for a student who really loves a college, wants to commit to that school. They walked on that campus. They feel like this is where they belong. Their brother went there. Their parents went there. This is where they feel comfortable. This is where they want to go. That's a great condition for early decision. Also, it sometimes is less competitive in an early decision as an early decision applicant than it would be for a regular decision. A college is going to tell you that that's false, but I, in my experience, have found that that is true. And if you think about it numerically, it makes sense because fewer students apply early decision than regular decision. And so if you are being judged in a pool of 500 candidates versus 1,500 candidates, your chances are better with the smaller pool. So if you are on the edge of being accepted in terms of your criteria, if it is, and early decisions tends to be our more competitive private schools and universities. So, you know, most of our Ivies have early decisions. It's always a good idea if you are interested in that school strongly to do early decision. Now, obviously, they cannot hold you to that contract legally. They're not going to arrest you. They're not going to fine you. If you change your mind and don't go, that, you know, nothing legally is going to happen. But do be aware that they do communicate with colleges, communicate these early decision lists. And if you do default on them, they will share that with their colleagues at other schools, and that could work against you. So really make sure you're using early decision only if you can, you believe you'll be able to attend. When you apply early decision, you do have to fill out a rough financial information, submit the financial information. So you will have a sense as to what their scholarship will be given to you. Keep in mind why early decision works for colleges. So colleges get their ratings and their rankings based on what's called a yield. A yield means the number of students who've been accepted versus the number of students who actually attend. So by a college using the early decision option, they are guaranteeing that those accepted will be attending, thereby increasing their yield. Some schools are starting to accept 40 to 50% of their freshman class from the early decision applicant pool, because it is a opportunity for them to increase their yield, because they basically say you have to come to our school. So keep that in mind as you're looking at early decision options. Early decision 2 tends to have later deadlines than the earlier decision ones. So this would be for a student who maybe didn't get into their first school on an early decision application, and then they like the second school, so then they'll use that and apply for that early decision on round 2. And then finally, we have what's called open admissions. These are the community colleges and some of our trade schools, whereby as long as you've graduated, have a high school diploma, you are admitted to the school, and admissions is ongoing up until it's time to enroll. All right, so what should you be doing now as a junior? The first thing, as I mentioned, is the essay, and hopefully your English teachers are working with you closely on this. This is probably the hardest essay you're ever going to write, because you are not going to know who is reading your essay. You don't know if they understand sense of humor. You don't know if they understand sarcasm, if they understand different nuances in your writing style. Often they are statements like, write a personal statement. Tell me about something that's influenced you. And as 17, 18-year-old young men and women, young people, you have to realize that hopefully you haven't had that many experiences that have molded or shaped you as a person. And so you're going to tend to write about things like the time my soccer team won the championship game, or my trip my trip to Costa Rica, where I volunteered, really helped me. Or things like my grandfather was my hero, or my parents' divorce impacted my life. These are topics that college representatives tell us that they are reading over and over and over. So you need to find a way to present yourself and show who you are in a unique, different way than the other essays that will be coming in. I always tell this, but many years ago, I had a student who wrote her essay about making tuna fish sandwiches with her mother every Sunday afternoon. And you think to yourself, that's a really odd, boring topic, but it was a phenomenally well-written essay, gave an insight into her personality, her family connections, the communication. So there are topics you can find that you would think are nothing, but can really make an impact in you. You want to try to tell a story, not just regurgitate some information about, your different extracurriculars, your activities, but you really want to bring yourself to life. Students, this is the time to have people proofread for you. Your English teachers, your parents, counselors would be glad to proofread, but parents, I will caution you, please make sure that you are not changing the tone and style of your students. Admissions officers are pretty well versed in what a 17 and 18-year-old student writes like. And so if it has too much of an mature adult voice, they're going to recognize that this has been rewritten by adults in the student's life. You want to make sure that you are proofreading for spelling and grammar mistakes. You want to make sure that you are answering the topic, and you really want to make sure that you are meeting the guidelines of the criteria of the essay. If it says 250 words, please do not submit a 750-word essay, because that is not what they're looking for, and that's going to be a red flag that you can't follow directions and so forth. So really take the time to work on this essay. Hopefully you'll come out of this junior year with a rough draft, but you can spend the summer refining it and revising it and really making it a solid representation of yourself. I talked a little bit about your activities. If you have a fair number of activities and leadership roles, it's a nice idea to type up a one-page resume with listing some of the things with a brief description of what you've done, and then you can attach that to your application. So again, this is something you can be working on now and through the summer. You want to start thinking about letters of recommendation. So as I said, many schools are looking for 1 or 2. Some will even take up to 3 or 4. You don't want to send any more than that. You typically want to start thinking about which teachers that you've had over your high school career that could write a solid letter of recommendation for you. Letters of recommendation do not have to be from a class where you had straight A's. In fact, sometimes if you had straight A's and the class was easy, you're not going to get a great letter of recommendation, because the teacher will say, oh yeah, Lori was really smart in this class, did great, earned good grades. But if you're a student who participates a lot in class and goes and gets extra help if needed, and is a peer leader and asks insightful questions, those are the types of classes that you're going to be wanting to talk to teachers about. If you are going into a specific field, like a history or a science field, you want to consider using a science or a history teacher for your recommendations. We do suggest that you try to stick with your junior year teachers as often as you can, but we do recognize that sometimes you didn't have a good relationship with them, or the person was out a lot or something. So you can go back to 9th or 10th if you have to, but really try to focus on your junior teachers to write the letters. You can speak to the teachers now about it if you wish, but most teachers are going to say, come see me in the fall. So that's when you will do the official asking of them. But start thinking about who you would want to ask and who could portray you in the best light. You can also include a letter of recommendation from a coach or a sponsor or an employer or a clergy person at your church or synagogue. They would write about a different facet of you as a student. So while they might want to see a teacher write 1 or 2 letters, you can also use someone who can talk to you as more of a well-rounded person and your character and your responsibility levels. So that's another option as well. And finally, we really recommend that you get your testing done as early as you can. If you can finish it in junior year and you think you're going to be using your scores, we recommend that you do them in your junior year if possible. So here are the remaining test dates that are left for SAT and ACT. The next two during the school year of the SATs are May 6th and June 3rd. June 3rd is the test site here at Cheltenham. So if you wanted to do it at school, you could register by June, or for the June 3rd test, you have to register by May 4th. You would go to collegeboard.com and register for it there. Here are the anticipated dates for next year. Notice there is an August 26th date. So that registration typically opens up in July, early July, end of June for August. Look for that if you want to try one more time. If you have to go into October, November, and December, all of those dates will be in plenty of time for colleges to receive the scores. And we are typically a test site in October and December. Again, the ACT dates are here, June 10th and July 15th. And then they also have September, October, and December dates. We do not offer the ACT at Cheltenham, but there are schools around that will. If you are doing well on your SATs and you're thinking you want to send them, as long as you I think it's 2 weeks after the test date, go online and select colleges to send them to. It is free to send up to 4 schools, so you can certainly do that. Or you can wait and see your scores and then send them yourself, but there will be a fee for that. All right, so timelines. When should I be doing what? So here's what you should be doing in the spring and the summer of junior year. Again, you should be touring schools. You should be starting to look at some of your financial aid opportunities and looking at the costs of things. The testing, send score reports if you're going to be using them. Start looking at the online applications over the summer. Common Application is available now. You just need to make sure you're selecting it as the in the correct format for the year you're going to be starting. Individual college applications typically become available usually around August 1st. Begin writing your essays and finalizing your essays. If a school requires a counselor recommendation, and you will be able to see that on a school's website, we are asking that you fill out a recommendation survey for us, which is in Naviance under the About Me tab. And finally, we're suggesting that you clean up social media. So a school like a Temple or a Penn State that has thousands of applications are probably not going to be looking at your social media, to be very honest. But some of the smaller schools very much could be. And if they see you on there using a lot of curses, perhaps with smoke all over your face, holding a vape or holding a red Solo cup, that could work negatively against you. There are students, just so you know, you might think you're locked down, but remember, everything on the internet is public and can be seen. There are search companies that colleges and employers can use to track down your social media. So even if you think your Finsta is locked down and nobody will find you, there are facial recognitions. There are ways for them to do that. So please start looking and doing as much cleanup and damage control as you can now. Conversely, if you have a lot of positive things on your social media, that could work in your favor. So, are you volunteering at a 5K race sometime this spring? Post a picture of that. Are you sitting with at the school musical? Post a picture of that. There are definitely things you can do to make your social media a positive influence for you. All right, senior year timeline. What do we do? As I said, you're going to come back to school, ideally knowing exactly where you will be applying. We will do a night for parents. It's typically 6 o'clock prior to back to school night. This will be essential because we will walk you through step by step how your students should be applying, using Naviance, using applications. Senior year, complete and submit the applications. Again, you want to do those by end of October, by Thanksgiving at the absolute latest. If you have to finish up testing, do it early in the school year. Find your teachers from last year and talk to them about recommendations. Attend the college representative visits that we talked about. Parents, you should be attending financial aid night and FAFSA completion night, and I'll go over that in a few minutes. Start looking for scholarships. If you are planning to play sports in college, Division I and Division II, you have to complete the NCAA clearinghouse and submit your transcript. FAFSAs, that's the financial aid form. Parents, you can submit that as early as October 1st. And finally, seniors, again, keep your grades up. Seniors need to keep their grades up through at least first semester. All right, so now we talk money. So there are two types of financial aid. Financial aid is the amount of money that you will be awarded to help you pay for college. There are two types: merit money and need-based money. Merit money is money based on the fact that you have a certain GPA, or you're from a certain demographic area, or you have an activity that they like, or you're just a strong student. That is money that will be given to you regardless of parent income. You do not have to pay that money back. Those are grants and scholarships. Then there is need-based money. Need-based money is determined based on parent and student income, and that is driven by the FAFSA. FAFSA stands for the Free Application for Federal Student Aid. It is an application process that is run by the government, the US government. You would fill out your FAFSA based on your, you guys are, yes, 2020, I want to make sure I have the right information, 2022 financial year. So the year that just passed is the year that will be used for your financial aid application. You will have to enter a whole bunch of things, bank account amounts, stocks, funds, number of students you have, income, taxes paid, all of that gets entered. If your student works, their information is included in the FAFSA as well. And FAFSA will then, the government will then create, there is a formula, they will develop what they call the expected family contribution. That will be what you are expected to pay towards college. They then send this information to each of the colleges that you have identified that your student is applying to. And then the colleges will put together a financial aid package. The financial aid package will be based on loans, perhaps some grants that you would not have to pay back, some work study opportunities. And so then you will see that information before you have to make your decision as to where you want to attend. So the FAFSA is a really important tool. You want to make sure that you are filling it out as early in the fall as you can. Like I said, you can begin it by October 1st. And you definitely need to be aware of deadlines the colleges set, but keep in mind that as they disseminate money, they could start to run low. So you want to make sure you're applying as early as you can. Some of the private schools also use another financial aid form called the CSS profile. This is sponsored by and run by College Board, tends to be the private schools that are using the profile. They will ask different information on the profile, and so it may help you, but if it is required, you will have to fill that out. So there's something called the net price calculator that every college is required to have on their website. So you could Google, Fordham University net price calculator, and you'll get a link that will take you there. What you will do is you will enter preliminary data from 2022, your income, some information, some basic information, students' GPA, and it will give you a rough financial aid estimate of what your package would look like. So it's a good way for you to get an idea of what you're talking about financially before you commit to schools that you're going to actually spend the money and the time to apply for. And then finally, scholarship searches. We encourage students to do scholarship searches. You should never pay a scholarship search because you can do it all online. Naviance, as we get scholarships in, we list them on there. Parents, check your employers. You would be surprised. Service organizations. You can Google, things like scholarships for left-handed students, scholarships for oldest children. There are such scholarships out there that are available that sometimes aren't used. So definitely spend the time to do that. So we talked about the FAFSA. You will be completing the 24-25 FAFSA, and you can do it after October 1st. You will need your 2022 income. In October, we offer a financial aid night. Oh, look, there's a typo. Financial aid night. That's in the fall of the senior year. It is a night event. It is sponsored by a local college's financial aid office that will just walk you through the process and explain to you some tricks and tips of the actual process. So that's a really important night for parents to attend. And again, best advice is to file early and watch for deadlines. Here are some really good scholarship websites that we have found that we like. So definitely feel free to start looking at them. Most of them for seniors don't open up until the fall, but you never know. Some of these like fastweb.com, FinAid, you fill out some basic information and you will then be on a mailing list. And as they have scholarships that fit your criteria, they will email them to you. So it's always a good idea to use these sites. So please stay in touch with us. Students, stop in, meet with us. Parents, feel free to email us. We send counseling e-blasts. We typically send those via Naviance. So parents, if you are not getting emails from me about, like if you did not for some reason get the email about this from me, rather you saw it in Mr. DeAndrea's note, email is not on Naviance correctly. Log on to your child's Naviance account and add parent information. If you're stuck, call the counselor and we can add you. But this is really important, especially as it comes into senior year. Parents, if you're feeling frustrated, you're feeling overwhelmed, we encourage you to call your student's counselor, set up an appointment, talk to us. We are here to help you. Some parents have been through this process 1, 2, 3 times before, and it's easy. Some students are very self-motivated, driven, ready to do all of this on their own. So you're not going to have to be involved. Many students are not like that. This is a very overwhelming process. Senior year is fun, but senior year is a lot of work. So this is an easy thing for them to push off. So if you need us to nudge your students at some point, if you need us to work with them more closely, if you're battling parents and students and you need us to be the intermediary, please use us for that opportunity. Here are some of the things to look forward to. As I mentioned, the 6 p.m. the evening of back to school night, we will go over the college application process. We have a financial aid process in October, and typically in early November, we host a FAFSA completion night. That's where you will bring in your tax documents from 2022, and there will be a financial aid representative from the Pennsylvania higher education financial area and help you actually sit and do your FAFSA and completion that night. You can do it yourself, but if you're nervous about it, you're unsure, this will be a night for you to come in and do that as well. And those dates will be determined a little bit later in the year, and they will be shared with you guys. All right, that's the end of my presentation. A lot of information. Hopefully you got some stuff from it, but if you do have questions, now is the time to put them on there. So let me see if I can see the questions. Okay, feel free to type them. We'll sit here for a minute or two. If anybody has questions, we'd be glad to help you. If not, thank you for joining us. Again, this presentation will be available online, and as will the slideshow. So we'll hang around for a few minutes and go from there. Okay. Yeah.
Hi, Lori, there are 2 raised hands. You want me to allow them to talk?
Yeah, I don't see why not.
Okay.
Let me ask you this. Well, hello there, Bishop. If my child plays sports, how do we begin the recruitment process? First thing I always recommend is that you speak to your child's coach and get a sense as to whether they are Division 1, 2, or 3. Then they should be able to help you. There are websites you can create about your student, their records, their times, their successes, their awards. You can start doing that. And then hopefully the coaches, you can email those to coaches of colleges that you're interested in. You can send them to those colleges and start that process that way. But hopefully your sports coach will help you. Okay, did someone, you said, had raised hands? Go ahead.
They put their hands down.
Okay. I see another question. When would you recommend retaking the SAT? And so if the student has taken it once, I would say take it again in the spring, either May or June. If you would be more comfortable taking it at Cheltenham High School, then definitely do the June date. If those dates don't work, then I would go to the August date for you. But you certainly can do this, the tests during the senior year start, but it's much better to get it done in junior year if you can. Another question? Nope, you're welcome. Thank you. All right. Well, again, I want to thank you guys for coming. Hopefully this was beneficial and you learned something. Students, hopefully you got something out of this as well. And so we wish everyone a great night and have a good evening and a good rest of your junior year. Thanks for coming.